A foundation of guilt, deconstructing Ridge's heartbreaking betrayal of Taylor in The Bold and the Beautiful. In the gilded world of high fashion and even higher drama that defines the bold and the beautiful, love is a battlefield, and hearts are the casualties. For decades, the central conflict has revolved around one of the most iconic love triangles in television history, the tumultuous, passionate, and often heart-wrenching dynamic between designer Ridge Forrester, the ever-resilient Brooke Logan, and the steadfast psychiatrist, Dr. Taylor Hayes. Recently, fans witnessed what appeared to be a seismic shift in this long-running saga. After years of longing glances, missed opportunities, and playing the role of the noble second choice, Taylor Hayes finally received what she, her children, and a legion of supporters believed was her ultimate vindication, a marriage proposal from the man she never stopped loving. The scene was painted with the brushstrokes of a fairy tale. It was a moment that promised an end to the endless back and forth, a commitment to stability, family, and a future built on shared history and quiet understanding. However, a recent deep dive analysis of this emotionally charged plotline reveals a far darker and more tragic truth. This engagement, far from being a happily ever after, is a tragedy in the making, a beautiful facade constructed upon a foundation of guilt, emotional obligation, and a profound betrayal of the heart. Ridge Forrester didn't choose Taylor out of a newfound, all-encompassing love. He chose her out of guilt, and in doing so, has set the stage for what may be the most soul-crushing heartbreak of Taylor's life. This isn't a romance, it's a rescue mission gone terribly wrong, and the truth, when it inevitably erupts, will shatter not just an engagement, but the very illusion of a dream finally realized. Part 1. The alluring illusion of a dream come true. To understand the magnitude of the impending devastation, one must first appreciate the profound significance of the proposal from Taylor's perspective. For Taylor Hayes, a woman of grace, intelligence, and immense emotional strength, her history with Ridge Forrester has been a masterclass in patience and pain. She has been the other woman, the confidant, the mother of his children who watched from the sidelines as he was repeatedly drawn back into the passionate, chaotic orbit of Brooke Logan. Her love for Ridge has been a constant, a flame she kept alive through his multiple marriages to her rival, through periods of distance, and through the quiet agony of knowing she held a piece, but never all, of his heart. When Ridge slid that engagement ring onto her finger, it was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was the symbolic culmination of a lifetime of waiting. It was a promise that this time it was different. This time, he was choosing her not as a rebound, not as a safe harbor, but as his partner, his future, his forever. For Taylor, and especially for their children, Steffi and Thomas, this union represented the ultimate victory. Their family, fractured for so long, was finally being made whole. Steffi and Thomas have been the most vocal champions of their parents' reunion, believing that Taylor's steadfast and grounding love is what their father truly needs, a stark contrast to the drama and perceived instability of his life with Brooke. Their joy and relief amplified the moment, transforming a personal commitment into a familial restoration. This engagement was sold to the audience and to Taylor herself as the triumph of enduring, mature love. It was meant to be the final chapter where the dependable, loyal woman finally wins the heart of the man who took her for granted. It was a narrative of redemption, not just for Ridge, but for the very idea of a love that is quiet, supportive, and built to last. It was everything Taylor had ever wanted, a dream so long deferred that its arrival felt like a miracle. But as is so often the case in the world of soap operas, miracles are merely illusions waiting to be shattered. Part 2. The psychology of guilt and the cracks in the facade. The fundamental flaw in this fairy tale lies in the psyche of its prince, Ridge Forrester. To understand his choice, one must look past the romantic gesture and analyze the motivation behind it. Ridge's decision to propose to Taylor was not an action, but a reaction. It was born not from a sudden, overwhelming love for Taylor, but from a moment of profound hurt and perceived betrayal by Brooke. Believing Brooke had wronged him in an unforgivable way, he did what he always does. He ran. And his refuge, as it has been so many times before, was Taylor. This is the critical distinction. He wasn't running to Taylor, he was running from Brooke. His proposal was not a declaration of love, but an act of emotional damage control. In his mind, he was severing ties with the woman who hurt him and, in the same breath, trying to protect the woman he has consistently hurt. A recent analysis of this storyline posits that Ridge, exhausted by the weight of his own deception and indecision, made a choice based on guilt and a misguided sense of nobility. He saw Taylor's hope, her vulnerability, and the decades of pain etched into her history with him. He feared being the one to break her heart again, to tell her that even after everything, his soul still yearned for another. And so he proposed. It was a choice rooted in pity. He was attempting to soothe his own conscience by giving Taylor what he thought she needed, rather than following what his heart truly wanted. There is a palpable hesitation in his demeanor, a flicker of doubt in his eyes that Taylor, a seasoned psychiatrist, undoubtedly senses even if she refuses to acknowledge it. He doesn't commit easily, and when he does, it is often conditional, a response to external chaos rather than an internal certainty. He is playing the part of the devoted fiancé, but his performance is unconvincing because the role was never truly his to play. This pattern of behavior is Ridge's tragic flaw, his inability to be honest with himself, and therefore, with the women who love him, creates a wake of emotional wreckage that he seems destined to repeat. He may believe he is doing the noble thing, but in truth, he is building their future on a lie, a foundation so fragile that it is destined to collapse under the slightest pressure. Part 3. The Unspoken Truth and the Ever-Present Ghost of Brooke. No matter how many promises Ridge makes to Taylor, no matter how sincere his attempts to build a life with her may seem, he is haunted. He is haunted by the ever-present ghost of Brooke Logan. The video analysis aptly describes Brooke as the gravitational pull in his life, an inescapable force that lives rent-free in his soul. Their connection transcends logic and reason. It is a chaotic, complicated, and at times destructive bond, but it is also undeniably the epic love of his life. For Taylor, this is the insurmountable obstacle. She is not merely competing with another woman. She is competing with a history, an unbreakable spiritual tether that binds Ridge and Brooke. She is fighting against decades of shared memories, inside jokes, secret glances, and the profound comfort they find in each other's presence, even after the most bitter of fights. When Ridge is with Taylor, he may be physically present, but a part of his heart, a part of his very essence, remains with Brooke. This is evident in the subtle tells. The way his eyes search for something that isn't there, the way he flinches at the mention of Brooke's name, the pregnant pauses that linger a moment too long after he says, "I love you." This dynamic is further complicated by the manipulation of others, particularly their son, Thomas. Thomas, in his desperate need to see his parents reunited, has often resorted to deceit to drive a wedge between Ridge and Brooke. This external pressure means that Ridge's decision was made not in a vacuum of pure emotion, but in an environment tainted by lies. The truth he believes about Brooke's betrayal is likely a fabrication, which means his entire justification for being with Taylor is built on false pretenses. When that truth is revealed, his entire rationale will crumble, and he will be left with nothing but the raw, undeniable reality of his feelings for Brooke. Taylor, therefore, is not a victor in a love triangle. She is a placeholder, a temporary salve for Ridge's wounded ego. The tragic irony is that in his attempt to avoid hurting Taylor, Ridge is setting her up for the most profound pain imaginable. He has offered her a kingdom, but it is a kingdom built in another woman's shadow, and the rightful queen is merely waiting for the opportune moment to reclaim her throne. Part 4. The Coming Reckoning and the Inevitable Explosion. The truth in a soap opera is like a coiled spring. The more it's suppressed, the more explosive the release. The confession from Ridge is not a matter of if, but when and how. Will he, worn down by his own lie, confess to a tearful Brooke in a moment of weakness? Will Taylor, with her psychiatrist's intuition, finally piece together the inconsistencies and confront him head-on? Or will she stumble upon the truth accidentally, overhearing a conversation that was never meant for her ears? However it happens, the impact on Taylor will be seismic. This won't just be a broken heart. It will be the utter annihilation of a dream she has nurtured for decades. It is the final, brutal confirmation of her deepest, most persistent insecurity, that she was never truly chosen, only settled for. The love and commitment she thought she had finally won will be exposed as nothing more than pity and obligation. The foundation of her new beginning will turn to dust, revealing the lie it was built upon. This is the moment where we may hear the powerful, heartbreaking words, "You broke my heart for the last time." But what does this mean for Taylor's future? Will this be her ultimate breaking point, a blow from which she can never recover? Or could it, just maybe, be her breakthrough? The spoilers for the bold and the beautiful hint at a possible shift, a moment of clarity where Taylor begins to question everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and her own self-worth. This could be the start of a powerful transformation, a journey where she finally rises from the ashes of this heartbreak, stronger than ever, no longer defined by the men who failed her, but by the woman she finally becomes. And what of Brooke? Her history with Ridge is far from over. Their connection, as complicated and destructive as it may be, remains undeniable. The moment Ridge confesses the truth, the door to Brooke, his Logan, will creak open once again, inviting him back into the familiar storm of their love. Conclusion: the aftermath of a lie. The unfolding storyline between Ridge, Taylor, and Brooke is far more than another romantic twist. It is a brutal emotional lesson wrapped in designer suits and diamond rings. It's about the profound difference between being loved and being pitted, between being chosen and being convenient. Ridge Forrester may have believed he was doing the noble thing by proposing to Taylor, but in truth, his actions were a form of profound cruelty. By offering her a promise he couldn't emotionally fulfill, he has done more damage than if he had simply walked away with the honest, painful truth. For Taylor, this isn't just a broken heart. It's a betrayal of trust, of hope, and of the healing she thought she had finally found. As this story reaches its climax, we are left to wonder, will Taylor swallow the pain and walk down that aisle, wearing a smile for the world while her heart silently shatters beneath the veil? Or will she, for the first time in far too long, choose herself? Perhaps the ultimate justice will be Taylor rising before the ceremony even begins, walking away from the man who couldn't love her wholly, and finally realizing her own worth. She deserves someone who wakes up every morning grateful to love her, someone who fights for her not because they feel sorry for her, but because they can't imagine life without her. And maybe, just maybe, through all this pain, she will realize that the version of Ridge she loved, the man she built up in her mind, never really existed. This story is far from over, but one thing is certain: a reckoning is coming, and it promises to be one of the most dramatically beautiful and heartbreaking moments in the show's recent history. Thanks for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.